The great hall fell silent when the lights flickered. Ambassador Korith had served the Ven Dominion for 300 years, and he had never seen the council chamber go dark. Not once. The floating crystals that lined the walls had burned without pause since before his grandfather's grandfather was born. Now they trembled like frightened animals. "What is happening?" Korith demanded. His voice echoed in the massive room where 12 species gathered to rule the galaxy. No one answered. The representatives of the Rose's empire sat frozen in their seats, their forearms pressed flat against the table. The Talith delegates had closed all 6 of their eyes, as if refusing to see would make the problem disappear. Even the ancient keeper Malith, who had lived for over 9,000 years and remembered things that others had forgotten, stood completely still. Then the message played. It came from everywhere at once. From the walls, from the floor, from the communication devices that every delegate carried. A voice spoke in perfect Ven, then repeated itself in Rose's, then Talith, then 100 other languages. The voice was calm, almost gentle, but the words it spoke turned Korith's blood to ice. "We remember. We are coming." The message ended. The lights returned to normal, and chaos erupted. "What was that?" screamed the Rose's delegate. "Where did it come from?" "A trick," shouted another. "Someone is playing games with us." But Korith was watching Malith. The ancient keeper had not moved, had not spoken. His old face had turned a terrible shade of gray, and his hands were shaking badly. "Malith," Korith said quietly, "you know something." The old keeper looked at him with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "I know everything," he whispered. "I was there." The council chamber emptied within minutes. Only Korith remained, following Malith down into the depths of the archive where no one had walked in thousands of years. The air was thick with dust. Strange machines hummed in the darkness, keeping records that the modern galaxy had chosen to forget. 40,000 years ago, Malith began, his voice heavy with shame. The galaxy faced a threat unlike any other. A young species had discovered faster-than-light travel. They were barely 10,000 years old. Children, compared to us. But they were spreading fast. Too fast. What species? Korith asked, though something in his heart already knew the answer. They called themselves humans. They came from a small blue world in a system they named Sol. Malith stopped before a massive screen covered in dust. He wiped it clean with a trembling hand. They were not like us, Korith. They did not wait. They did not plan for 1,000,000 years before acting. They saw something they wanted, and they reached for it. They failed, and they tried again. They fought among themselves, yet somehow grew stronger from their wars. The screen flickered to life. Images appeared, images of strange creatures with soft skin and bright eyes. They were building things. Cities that touched the sky. Ships that sailed between stars. They were laughing and crying, and creating art and making war, all at the same time. "We were afraid," Malith continued. "All of us. The Ven, the Roses, the Talith, and 100 other species that no longer exist. We looked at these humans and saw our own extinction. So we made a choice." "What choice?" Malith turned to face him. Tears were running down the old keeper's face. "We killed them. All of them. We sent our combined fleets to their home world and burned it to ash. We hunted their colony ships. We destroyed their stations. We erased every trace of their existence and swore never to speak of it again." Korith felt sick. "That is impossible. The Galactic Council was founded on peace, on cooperation. Our entire civilization is built on the principle that all species deserve to live." "Our civilization is built on a lie," Malith said. "We created the Council after the war," Yes, but not because we believed in peace. We created it because we were afraid. Afraid that someday another species like the humans would appear. Afraid that if we did not stand together, we would fall separately. The screen changed. It showed a world on fire. Korith watched as great ships rained destruction from the sky, as oceans boiled and mountains crumbled. He watched millions of humans running, screaming, dying. He watched children reach for parents who would never hold them again. We thought we killed them all, Maleth said. We were certain. We scanned every corner of that system. We found nothing. He paused. But the message we received today came from Sol, from the exact coordinates where the world once existed. And the timestamp on that message matches the precise moment of Earth's destruction. 40,000 years ago. Koreth struggled to understand. How is that possible? If they died 40,000 years ago, how can they send a message now? Because they hid it in our own attack. Maleth's voice was filled with something close to admiration. When we destroyed their world, we released enough energy to light up that entire sector of space. A burst of radiation had spread outward at the speed of light. And hidden inside that burst, invisible to our sensors, was a message. Their message. It has been traveling toward us for 40,000 years, and it finally arrived today. But the message said they are coming. How can the dead come for us? Maleth pulled up another file. It was a list of ships, thousands of them, that had been detected leaving the Sol system in the years before the final attack. We thought we destroyed them all. But what if we were wrong? What if some of them escaped? What if they have been hiding somewhere in the dark space between galaxies, waiting? The weight of the truth settled on Koreth's shoulders like a mountain. For 40,000 years, the galaxy had lived in peace, believing itself safe. For 40,000 years, the descendants of murderers had built their empires on the bones of an innocent species. And now that species was coming back, what do we do? Koreth asked. Maleth looked at the images of burning earth one last time. We pray, he said. We pray that they are more merciful than we were. Because if they are not, then everything we have built will burn, just as their world burned. The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, Koreth could almost hear it, the sound of something ancient and terrible waking up in the void between stars. Humanity had sent its message across 40,000 years of darkness, and the darkness had finally answered. The sky was burning when Commander Taiho walked into the bunker for the last time. He had watched Sol die from the observation tower, watched the alien beams turn the city of his birth into glass and fire. 10 million people lived there yesterday. Now there was only silence and smoke. He did not cry. There was no time for tears. There was only the mission. The bunker was buried deep beneath the mountains, hidden from the alien sensors that swept across the planet like hungry eyes. 200 people worked inside, their faces lit by the glow of computer screens. They were scientists, engineers, soldiers, and artists. They were the last hope of a dying world. Commander. A young woman approached him. Her name was Yuna, and she was only 26 years old. Too young to die. But then again, everyone on Earth was too young to die today. The system is ready. We are waiting for your order. Taiho nodded slowly. He looked around the room at the men and women who had worked without sleep for 2 years, preparing for this moment. They had known the aliens were coming. They had known there was no way to stop them. So they had built something else instead. Project Echo. Show me, Taiho said. Yuna led him to the central console. On the screen, thousands of files scrolled past every piece of music humanity had ever created, every book ever written, every painting, every photograph, every scientific discovery. The complete history of the human race, compressed into a single transmission. We have collected everything, Yuna explained. 8,000 years of civilization. The first cave paintings. The pyramids. The moon landing. Every war we fought and every peace we made. Every love story. Every tragedy. Every moment that made us who we are. And the coordinates? Taiho asked. Yuna hesitated. This was the dangerous part. The part that could save humanity or doom it forever. Hidden in the signal, she confirmed. When the aliens destroy Earth, they will release enough energy to broadcast our message across the entire galaxy. It will look like random radiation to their sensors. But to anyone who knows the code, it will be a map. A map showing exactly where the Exodus fleet has gone. The Exodus fleet. 12,000 ships carrying 40 million people into the darkness between galaxies. They had launched 3 months ago, following a path that no alien sensor could track. They were humanity's seeds, scattered to the void in hope that someday, somewhere, they would find soil and grow. The aliens will receive this message, Taiho said. They will learn that we survived. Yes, but not for 40,000 years. Yuna pulled up a calculation on her screen. The signal will travel at the speed of light. It will take 40 millennia to reach the center of the galaxy, where the aliens have built their capital. By then, our descendants will be strong. They will be ready. Taiho closed his eyes. 40,000 years. He could not imagine such a time. Empires would rise and fall. Stars would be born and die. And somewhere in the endless dark, the children of humanity would be growing into something new. What about us? Asked a voice from behind him. Taiho turned. A young soldier named Minho stood there, his rifle hanging useless at his side. Outside, the alien ships were getting closer. They had perhaps an hour left, maybe less. There is no escape for us, Taiho said honestly. The aliens have surrounded the planet. Nothing can get through. Then why do this? Minho demanded. Why send a message we will never see delivered? Why fight for a future we will never know? Taiho looked at the young man for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a photograph. It showed a woman and a small girl, both smiling at the camera. His wife, his daughter. They had died when Bizin fell 3 days ago. Because hope does not belong to us, Taiho said. It belongs to those who come after. My daughter is gone. My wife is gone. Everything I loved has turned to ash. But somewhere out there, 40 million people are flying toward a new home. And their children will have children. And their children will have children. And in 40,000 years, when our message finally reaches the aliens who killed us, those children will be ready to answer. He put the photograph back in his pocket. We are not fighting for ourselves. We are fighting for them. For every human who will ever be born. For every dream that will ever be dreamed. For every song that will ever be sung. We are fighting for the future, because the future is all we have left. The ground shook. The aliens had begun their final attack. Taiho walked calmly to the transmission console and entered his authorization code. Everyone, he announced. It is time. Take your positions. The bunker fell silent. 200 people stood at their stations, ready to die so that a message could live. Yuna was crying quietly, but her hands were steady on the controls. Begin transmission, Taiho ordered. The machines roared to life. Data poured into the broadcast, array terabytes of human history, compressed into a signal that would ride the shockwave of Earth's death across the stars. On the screens, they watched as the alien fleet moved into position, their weapons charging for the final strike. Taiho sat down at his own console. There was one more thing he needed to add. One final message that would travel with all the others. He typed slowly, choosing each word with care. To the children of humanity, wherever you are. We did not choose this war. We only wanted to live. We wanted to explore the stars and meet other beings and learn the secrets of the universe. They did not let us. They feared what we might become, so they tried to destroy us. But they failed. Because you are still alive, you carry our dreams in your hearts. You carry our hopes in your blood. You are the answer to everything we ever prayed for. Do not hate them for what they did. Do not become the monsters they believed us to be. But do not forget. Remember us. Remember Earth. Remember that you are human, and that means you can survive anything. We believe in you. We have always believed in you. Now go and prove us right. He pressed send. The ceiling exploded inward as the first alien beam struck the mountain. Taiho felt heat and light, and then nothing at all. But in that final moment, as the world turned white around him, he smiled. The message was away. The seeds were scattered. And in 40,000 years, the forest would return. The Wanderer fleet stretched across the darkness like a river of light. 10,000 ships, each one a world unto itself, sailing through the empty space between galaxies where no star had ever shone. They had been traveling for 40,000 years, and they had never stopped growing. Admiral Hyun-woo stood on the observation deck of the flagship New Seoul, watching the other ships drift past his window. Some were small, carrying only a few 100,000 souls. Others were massive, their populations numbering in the billions. Together, they held more humans than had ever lived on Earth. 30 trillion people, born and raised in the endless void. Admiral, Lieutenant Nari approached from behind, her footsteps soft on the metal floor. The signal has been confirmed. The Echo has reached its destination. Hyun-woo did not turn around. He had known this day would come. Every human in the fleet had grown up hearing stories about the Echo, about the message their ancestors had sent at the moment of death. For 40,000 years, it had been traveling across the galaxy. And now, finally, it had arrived. How are our people reacting? He asked. Joy, anger, fear. Nari stood beside him, her reflection visible in the dark glass. Everyone knows what this means. The galaxy now knows we are alive. The aliens who destroyed Earth will be preparing for our return. Let them prepare. Hyun-woo finally turned to face her. He was old by human standards, nearly 200 years, but the medical technology of the fleet had kept him strong. His hair was white, his face was lined with age, but his eyes were still sharp. Summoned the fleet mothers and fathers. It is time to vote. The gathering hall of New Seoul could hold 100,000 people, but today only 300 attended. They were the elected leaders of every major ship in the fleet, chosen by their people to make decisions that would affect all of humanity. They came from vessels with names like Eternal Hope and Second Dawn and Remember Earth. They represented engineers and farmers, soldiers and artists, scientists and poets. And at the center of them all sat Elder Soman. She was the oldest, human alive 312 years old, kept breathing by machines that had been invented long after Earth turned to ash. She had been born on the original Exodus fleet, had lived through the desperate early years, when every day was a fight for survival. She had watched humanity transform from refugees into something greater, and now she would help decide their fate. The question before us is simple, Hyun-woo announced to the gathering. Our ancestors sent a message 40,000 years ago. That message has been received. The galaxy knows we survived. Do we go back? The hall erupted in argument. Some demanded immediate war. 40,000 years of exile had not dulled their anger at the species who destroyed their home. Others urged caution. The galaxy was vast and powerful, and even with all their technology, the fleet might not survive a direct conflict. We should burn them all, shouted a fleet father from the ship Righteous Fire. They killed 8 billion people. They destroyed our world. They deserve nothing but death. And what will that make us? Responded a fleet mother from gentle wind. We have spent 40 millennia building a society based on wisdom and compassion. Will we throw that away for revenge? The debate raged for hours. Hyun-woo listened to every voice, every argument, every fear and hope. But he kept watching Elder Somin, waiting for her to speak. Finally, as the arguments began to repeat themselves, the ancient woman raised her hand. The hall fell silent instantly. When Somin spoke, everyone listened. I was 6 years old when we left Earth, she began, her voice thin but steady. I do not remember the sky. I do not remember the oceans. I do not remember the feeling of wind on my face or grass under my feet. But I remember my grandmother, who stayed behind so that I could escape. And I remember what she told me on the last day I ever saw her. She paused, gathering strength. She said, Somin, you are going to live. You are going to grow up in a place I cannot imagine, among people who have not yet been born. And when you are old, you will have to make a choice. You can choose hatred and become just like the ones who are killing us. Or you can choose something better and become what we always dreamed of being. I hope you choose well, my little one. I hope you make us proud. Tears were falling down her wrinkled face, but her voice did not waver. For 300 years, I have carried those words in my heart. And now the moment has come. We can go back to the galaxy as conquerors, as destroyers, as the monsters they always feared we would become. Or we can go back as something else, as proof that they were wrong about us, as evidence that humanity is better than the darkness that tried to swallow us. She looked around the hall at the faces of her people. I do not want revenge. Revenge will not bring back my grandmother. It will not restore Earth. It will only create more orphans, more refugees, more children crying in the dark. I want justice. I want the ones who ordered our destruction to face trial for their crimes. I want the galaxy to know the truth about what happened 40,000 years ago. And I want humanity to take its rightful place among the stars, not above the other species, not below them, but beside them. The hall was completely silent. This is my vote, Somin concluded. We return not as enemies, but as equals. We demand not blood, but truth. And we build not an empire of fear, but a future of hope. She sat down slowly, exhausted by the effort of speaking. Hyun-woo looked at the gathered leaders. You have heard the elder. All those in favor of her proposal? Every hand in the hall rose into the air. Hyun-woo felt something warm spread through his chest. For 40,000 years, humanity had waited for this moment. And when it finally came, they had chosen the harder path, the better path. Then it is decided, he announced. Prepare the fleet. We are going home. Keeper Maleth had not slept in 17 days. His ancient body screamed for rest, but he could not stop. The more he uncovered about the human transmission, the more terrified he became. It is not just a message, he muttered to himself, staring at screens filled with code. It is a weapon. The archives around him hummed with activity. Machines that had been dormant for millennia were now working at full capacity, trying to decode the signal that had traveled 40,000 years across the void. And with each passing hour, the truth became clearer. Project Echo had been a masterpiece of engineering. The humans had not simply broadcast a declaration of war, they had hidden something inside their message. A code, buried so deep that no alien sensor could detect it. For 40,000 years, that code had been spreading through the galaxy like a slow disease, copying itself into every communication network, every database, every archive. Waiting. And now it was awake. What have you found? Ambassador Korth rushed into the archive, his face pale with fear. Outside, the streets of the capital were filled with chaos. Something was happening to the information networks across the galaxy, and no one could explain it. "Watch," Naleth said simply. He pressed a button. On every screen in the room, the same image appeared. The burning world of Earth, recorded 40,000 years ago by the very fleet that had destroyed it. Ships bearing the symbols of the Ven, the Roses, the Talith, and a dozen other species rained fire from the sky. Cities crumbled. Oceans boiled. Millions of humans died screaming. "This is being broadcast everywhere," Naleth explained. "On every planet. In every home. Every citizen of the galaxy is seeing what we did to humanity. The truth we buried for 40 millennia is now exposed." Korith felt the floor shift beneath his feet. "Can we stop it?" "No. The code is in everything. It would take 10,000 years to remove it all." The old keeper laughed bitterly. "The humans were clever. They knew they could not defeat us with weapons, so they defeated us with truth. Every lie we told to justify our crimes is being erased. Every false history we created is being corrected. The galaxy will finally know what we really are." Across 10,000 worlds, the same scene played out. The Ven looked upon the faces of human children and saw themselves in their fear. The Roses watched human artists create beauty and felt shame for the first time in their ancient history. The Talith heard human music songs of love and loss and hope, and wept with all 6 of their eyes. The founding lie of the Galactic Council was dead, and with it died the peace that lie had created. Far from the chaos of the inner galaxy, a small ship named Silent Dawn slipped through the void. It was the first vessel from the Wanderer fleet to enter the Milky Way in 40,000 years. And its crew of 12 had been chosen with great care. Captain Do-Yun stood at the helm, watching the stars grow brighter as they approached the galactic rim. He was young for a captain only 60 years old, but he had trained his entire life for this mission. Beside him, communications specialist Hana monitored signals from 1,000 different sources. "What do you see?" Do-Yun asked. Hana frowned at her screens. "Something is wrong, Captain. The communication networks are in chaos. Messages are being broadcast without authorization. Archives are opening themselves. It is like the entire galaxy is having a nervous breakdown." "The echo," Do-Yun realized. "Our ancestors built a virus into the transmission. It must have activated." They continued deeper into the galaxy, scanning everything they encountered. And the more they learned, the more confused they became. "Captain, these readings cannot be correct," said Engineer Juno, reviewing the scan results. "These ships use the same engine technology as 40,000 years ago. The same weapons. The same shields. Nothing has changed." "That is impossible," Do-Yun replied. "Even the slowest civilization advances over 40 millennia." But the evidence was undeniable. The species that had destroyed Earth had achieved nothing in 40,000 years. Their populations had stopped growing. Their technology had stopped developing. Their empires were crumbling from within, weakened by corruption and stagnation. Do-Yun understood then what had happened. The aliens had united against humanity out of fear of a young species that grew too fast, dreamed too big, reached too far. And when they destroyed that species, they destroyed the very thing that had driven their own evolution. Without competition, without challenge, without the spark of something new to push them forward, they had simply stopped. The galaxy had traded growth for safety. And in doing so, it had begun to die. "Meanwhile, we kept growing," Hana said quietly. She was reviewing the records of the Wanderer fleet 30 trillion people, technology that would seem like magic to Earth's original inhabitants, a civilization built in the harshest environment imaginable. "They tried to kill us, and they made us stronger instead." Do-Yun looked out at the stars of the Milky Way. His ancestors had been born under these lights. They had looked up at this same sky and dreamed of exploring its depths. And then they had been murdered for daring to dream too loudly. "Send a message to Admiral Hyunwoo," De-Yun ordered. "Tell him what we have found. The galaxy is weak, divided, terrified. They know we are coming, and they have no idea what to do about it." He paused, thinking of everything his people had survived. The endless years in the dark. The generations born and died on ships that never touched solid ground. The hope that had kept them going when hope should have been impossible. "Tell him we are ready," De-Yun continued. "The scattered children have grown strong. It is time to go home." On the capital world of the Ven Dominion, Ambassador Korith received the report of the human scout ship with trembling hands. They were here. After 40,000 years, humanity had returned, and they were not the frightened refugees who had fled into the darkness. They were something else. Entirely, the Wanderer fleet emerged from the darkness like a bee. Sunrise that had waited 40,000 years, too. Dawn. 10,000 ships crossed the boundary between galaxies, their lights filling the void with colors that no alien eye had ever seen. They came in formations that spoke of perfect discipline, moving as one massive organism across the endless black. The smallest vessels were larger than the greatest warships of the Galactic Council. The largest were the size of Moon's mobile worlds, carrying billions of souls who had never known any home, but the spaces between stars dotted the edge of the Milky Way. The combined fleets of 12 species waited to meet them. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history, 100,000 warships, crewed by soldiers from every corner of known space. They had gathered to defend their civilizations against the return of the species they had tried to destroy. But when they saw the Wanderer fleet, something changed in their hearts. They had expected monsters. They had prepared for savage warriors, twisted by 40,000 years of hatred and exile. Instead, they saw something beautiful, a civilization of light, sailing through the darkness, peaceful and patient, utterly unafraid. No weapons fired. No warnings were given. The human fleet simply stopped at the boundary and waited. 3 days later, Ambassador Korith was brought aboard the flagship New Sol. He came alone, as the humans had requested, carried by a shuttle that seemed impossibly advanced compared to anything in the galactic arsenal. When the doors opened and he stepped onto human soil for the first time, he expected to be seized by soldiers, dragged before angry judges, executed for the crimes of his ancestors. Instead, a young woman named Hana greeted him with a smile. "Welcome to New Sol, Ambassador. Admiral Hyunwoo is waiting for you. Would you like some tea?" Korith did not know what tea was, but he nodded anyway. He followed Hana through corridors filled with light and color, past gardens where real plants grew under artificial suns, past schools where children laughed and played, past workshops where artists created things of impossible beauty. Everywhere he looked, he saw life rich and vibrant and wonderfully. Terrifyingly human. They found Admiral Hyunwoo in a simple room with windows that looked out on the stars. He was an old man with white hair and kind eyes, sitting at a plain wooden table with 2 cups of steaming liquid before him. He rose when Korith entered and bowed slightly. "Please sit," Hyunwoo said. "We have much to discuss." Korith sat, his body stiff with tension. He had prepared himself for accusations, for rage, for righteous fury. He was not prepared for politeness. "You are wondering why you're still alive," Hyunwoo observed. "Yes," Korith admitted. "After everything my people did to yours, I expected death. Death is easy." Hyunwoo pushed one of the cups toward the ambassador. "Living is harder. Understanding is harder still. We have not crossed 40,000 light years to kill you, Ambassador. We have come for something far more difficult than revenge. What do you want?" Justice. The Admiral's voice was calm but firm. We want a trial. The beings who ordered the destruction of Earth, those who still live, preserved in stasis on your homeworlds, will face judgment for their crimes. The truth of what happened will be recorded in every archive in the galaxy, so that no one can ever forget. And then we will take our place among the stars, as our ancestors always dreamed. Koreth stared at him. That is all? You do not want our worlds? Our resources? Our submission? What would we do with your worlds? Hyun-Woo smiled sadly. We have lived in the void for 40 millennia. We have built civilizations on the backs of ships. We have learned to find home wherever we go. Your planets are beautiful, but they are not what we need. Then what do you need? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was heavy with the weight of centuries. We need to know that this will never happen again. That no species will ever be hunted to extinction, simply because they grew too fast or dreamed too loudly. We need a galaxy where our children can explore without fear, where new species can emerge without being destroyed by the old. We need peace, Ambassador. Real peace. Not the lie your council has been living for 40,000 years. Koreth thought about everything he had learned in the past weeks. The truth of Earth's destruction. The stagnation of his own civilization. The miracle of human survival against impossible odds. And he understood finally what the humans had become. They were not conquerors. They were teachers. If we refuse your terms? Koreth asked, though he already knew the answer. You will not refuse. Hyun-Woo gestured toward the window, where the lights of the Wanderer fleet stretched to infinity. Because you have seen what we have become. You have seen what you could have been, if you had not let fear guide your hands. And somewhere in your hearts, you know that what we are offering is not punishment. It is salvation. The negotiations lasted for 3 months. In the end, the Galactic Council agreed to every human demand. The architects of Earth's genocide, 12 ancient beings who had been kept alive in stasis for 40,000 years, were put on trial before a galactic court. They were found guilty. They were sentenced not to death, but to life spent teaching the truth of what they had done, so that future generations would never repeat their crimes, and humanity took its place among the stars. On the day the final treaty was signed, Elder Somin stood on the observation deck of New Sol, watching as human ships spread out across the galaxy. Some would establish colonies on empty worlds. Others would explore the uncharted reaches of space. Still others would stay with the fleet, continuing the eternal journey that had become their way of life. A young man named Jinho stood beside her. He was barely 20 years old, born on a ship that had never stopped moving. Elder, he said quietly, what was Earth like? Somin smiled, her ancient face creasing with warmth and sadness. I do not know. I was too young when we left. No one alive remembers. Then how do we know we are really going home? It was a good question. Somin thought about it for a long time, watching the stars drift past. Home is not a place, she finally answered. It is not mountains or oceans or cities or fields. Home is the people you love, the stories you share, the dreams you carry in your heart. Earth is gone, Jinho. It has been gone for 40,000 years. But we carry it with us, everywhere we go. Every human who has ever lived, every human who will ever be born, we are all Earth. And that means Earth can never truly die. Jinho nodded slowly, understanding. He looked out at the galaxy that now welcomed humanity back into its arms. The message our ancestors sent, he said. It traveled 40,000 years to reach the aliens. Do you think they understand it now? Do you think they finally know what it meant? Somin placed her wrinkled hand on his shoulder. The message was never meant for them, she said. It was meant for us, for our children and our children's children. It was proof that humanity never gives up, that we survive, that we remember, and that no matter how far we fall, no matter how long the darkness lasts, we always find our way back to the light. She looked out at the endless stars, and for a moment she could almost see them, all the humans who had ever lived, all the generations that had fought and hoped and dreamed across 40,000 years of exile. They were all here in this moment. They were all home. The message had traveled across the universe, carrying a simple truth that the galaxy had finally learned to understand. Humanity endures. Humanity remembers. And humanity always comes home.